for tuning in to this week's episode of Chop the Rock. I'm Diana Long, Director of River Market Operations for the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau. And our guest chef this week is our good friend, Trey Reid with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here again.
Good. I hope we can do a whole lot of these because I feel like it's limitless, the things that people could learn about cooking with wild game here in Arkansas.
Absolutely. You know, Diana, we have a television show, Arkansas Wildlife, that we produce in-house at Game and Fish. And one thing we've done over the last couple of years, we've done it for years, but we've really gotten more intensive with it lately, is trying to end many of our shows with a cooking segment. And we get so much positive feedback from that. I think even if you're not a hunter or an angler, you enjoy seeing that circle completed. We talked about that last time I was here. The other thing that we're finding out is that as we're losing participation among hunters and anglers nationally and to some extent in Arkansas as well, that a good way to draw people back in or to recruit new hunters and anglers is through the stomach. Because there's been, you know, we're all familiar with the locavore movement and the push for locally sourced, organic, natural foods. And that's pretty easy with like the Little Rock Farmers Market and so many other farmers markets popping up, and gardening has had a resurgence. But when it comes to protein, that's not as easy. Now there's some great local small farms, especially in Arkansas.
Yes.
You can get meat protein at the River Market, I know. But
absolutely, yeah.
What's more natural and more organic than a free-ranging white-tailed deer or a mallard duck that's flying down from Canada and spending the winter here? And gosh, we've got so many great lakes and rivers in Arkansas that are literally teeming with wonderful fish. Today we're going to cook Crappie Ceviche.
That's going to be great.
You know, I told you last time I love Latin American cooking, Mexican, Caribbean, and so I remember the first time I ate ceviche on the beach in Mexico years ago, and I was like, this is just great.
Oh, so refreshing.
You can do it with many of our Arkansas fish species. We're going to use crappie today, but I've made it with brim and with walleye. I like those cleaner, firmer fleshed, whiter fish. You could do it with catfish. You could do it with store-bought fish for that matter. But I really like the idea. Crappie and walleye are two of my favorite fish species. Brim too. You just don't get a lot of meat off of a brim.
Right.
But it's just a really clean, fresh, light, healthy way to enjoy fish. I love fried fish as much as the next guy, but my doctor tells me my cholesterol is a little bit too high, so he'd prefer I not eat as many fried foods and things like that. Of course, fish is a very healthy protein, even if you are watching your cholesterol.
Yes.
You know, last time I was here, we cooked the venison and acorn squash curry. Very hearty and some heavy, exotic, heavily spiced flavors. This is really kind of the opposite end of the spectrum from that. This is just a few simple ingredients, tomatoes, onions, jalapenos. We're going to add an avocado to it, some cilantro, lime juice, and fish. That's it. That's it. And it's just, you know, a lot of people, when they hear ceviche too, they get a little, well, that's raw fish. It's not at all. Now, we're not cooking. We're not going to even use the stove today. The citrus in this lime juice is going to surround the fish, and it's almost like pickling it. It cooks it, so to speak.
It's the acidity in it absolutely cooks it,
So if you've ever cooked a shrimp recipe that's got like lime or some kind of citrus, they tell you don't put it on until the last minute. Don't let it sit in there because it will cook it and make it, like shellfish especially, will make it real rubbery. But we want this to cook our fish. Now you can do this with shrimp too, but it is one of my favorite ways to enjoy the catch of the day, and crappie is such a delicious fish. We don't need to cover it up with cornmeal and grease and deep fry it. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about what we get to do here, what you're able to bring to the show, and growing up in a very outdoors family that hunts and fishes. You know, like I remember eating deer chili and fried deer steaks and duck fried the same way. And then
I see a theme here.
Right, fried catfish, fried whatever the fish was, it was fried. Maybe we would grill some trout if that's, whatever. But introducing, I think, to people new ways and creative ways that they can cook our local game.
Absolutely.
Can continue to create some interest in that. And like you said, with the focus coming back to where's my food coming from, you absolutely know.
Yeah,
There's no question.
I caught it.
You caught it. That's right. That's and of the outdoors activities, fishing is my favorite. I'm not going to get up in the morning super early and go put on all the accoutrement and kill a deer and clean it and eat it.
Break ice on the surface of the water to go stand in that water to duck hunt.
Yeah, my Labrador is a lap dog. But I will go out, and on a nice afternoon, it's just relaxing. You're out in nature. You don't have to have a boat. You have to have a fishing license. Is how much for a year?
$10.50.
Well, that's cheaper than you could buy the shrimp that you would make to put in this.
Yeah, if you bought those fillets right here at the supermarket, of course you can't buy crappie, but some other type of commercially available fish, that'd probably be $8 or $9 a pound.
Exactly. And then, let's say you just want to try this out. You can get a 2 or 3 day license. Doesn't have to be an annual license.
You can buy a trip license. That's right. It's one day.
I've done that before on travels. And, if you wanted to say, I don't know how I'm going to like this. Our Central Arkansas Library System, especially at the Lehman Library, which is just down the road, you can check out a fishing ride.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't have to. My point is, you don't have to make a big investment, particularly in fishing.
And I think that's why
to get started.
We talked on the last episode, and I alluded to it when we started here about, declining participation. And that's one of the barriers that we've discovered over the years is that, like for duck hunting or deer hunting, you've got to have a lot of gear. A rifle or a shotgun's not cheap. But you can realistically go to a sporting goods store like Bass Pro or Academy or whatever, and you could buy a rod and reel for $20 or $30. $10.50 fishing license. So under $50, you can get involved and be ready to go. If you just want to try it out, and see if this is something you might like. You mentioned checking out the tackle at the Lehman Library. Visit one of our nature centers, like the Whit Stevens Jr. Central Arkansas Nature Center, just down the street from the River Market. We have a great staff there that is eager to teach people, how to do it. They can teach you how to cast. What type of baits to use, the knots to tie. You're so right, Diana. Fishing is really accessible and it's really easy. We have 90,000 miles of streams in Arkansas.
Wow.
I think about 650,000 acres of lakes. And they're very diverse. Everything from your clear streams up in the Ozarks and Ouachitas, to the Mississippi and Arkansas rivers, to our big core of engineer lakes like Ouachita and Greer's Ferry, and to smaller game and fish lakes. And there's really something for everybody. We've got many of our lakes, our game and fish lakes, have mobility impaired access, fishing piers, really good bank access. So, and we haven't, I didn't even talk about all of our trout streams. You talked about grilled trout, but I mean, we've got some of the best trout fishing in the world here in Arkansas. So,
that is delicious.
Fishing is literally right outside your doorstep. Come see us. Visit agfc.com if you want to learn more about it. We've got lots of kind of beginners fishing guides and tips there. Of course, I didn't even touch on our family and community fishing program that brings the fish. Instead of you having to go to the fish, it brings the fish to you.
That's right.
Here in Little Rock, for instance, we stock catfish throughout most of the spring and fall at places like MacArthur Park and Connor Park out on Highway 10. I mean, there are I think about 3 or 4 dozen lakes that we stock around the state, including several here in Little Rock. We even stock trout in the wintertime. When water temperatures are cold enough to support trout survival, because they can't stand the warm temperatures of an Arkansas summer. But there's really, there's no excuse not to be an angler, unless you just don't want to do it. But fishing is just such a great way to connect to nature.
It is.
And maybe take home something for dinner.
You know, we'll quote the old adage. You know, you can teach a man to fish, and he
That's
will
right.
fish for a lifetime. But if you just feed a man a fish, he only eats for a day.
That's
so
true. That's true.
We want to do both. We want to
Absolutely
feed some fish here, or feed us some fish.
Yeah.
And encourage you to get out and learn to fish. And I'm telling you, the first time you pull one, you catch one. That little tinge of excitement of, oh, I got it, even if it's tiny and you have to throw it back.
It's so funny. I mean, I've been fishing since I was a kid. I mean, just little bitty. I don't even remember catching my first fish. I mean, I've heard the stories from my parents. But I still, I mean, to this day, when you feel that tug on the other end of the line, there's just something magical about it.
There is, and it's kind of a surprise too, because you can't see exactly what it's going to be.
I think there's a famous quote. The fishing is about it's the search for something that is elusive but attainable.
There you go, and it exactly is both of those things. All right, well, get us started. I'm hungry just talking about all this.
Let's get going here. This is a really simple dish. So the first thing we're going to do, we've got some crappie fillets. As I mentioned, you can use other stuff. If you want to kind of cube that up, kind of little 1-inch pieces or so. I typically like to, do that, and then slice it lengthwise, and then kind of just come back across there. But just little pieces, because again, we want the lime juice to get around there. While you're doing that, I'm gonna get some of our veggies going here, and we're only gonna use about maybe a quarter of this onion. It's really easy. I tend to overbuy when I'm cooking this ceviche, because I think, oh, I need this and this, but
it doesn't take much.
You don't want to take too much away from the fish. Now,
right, it's such a light flavor fish
really is.
That if you did over, like, all these flavors are going to go very well together and complement each other. And like you were talking about in Latin American food, these are typical ingredients here, and because those flavors do go so well, but you still want to taste the fish.
Yeah, you do, and as simple as this recipe is, it is really pretty remarkable that you get the complexity of flavors out of it that you do. Of course, the lime juice is really, really important to it. We're going to use a little bit of garlic. I know you told me last time how much you like garlic.
This is my magic flavoring there.
So we're going to put a little bit of garlic into with the lime juice when the fish is quote unquote cooking in the refrigerator. So that's going to impart a little bit of flavor to it too. And of course, a little bit of salt.
How's this on size? Is that seems
that
like kind of
perfect. You're doing a great job. You are doing great. I mean, this is so easy. You can just whip this up. And when you use your jalapenos, you want to get rid of some of those veins and seeds in there. That's where a lot of the heat is. And we want some heat, but we want the flavor more than the heat. You don't have to be as cautious with jalapenos as you do with, like, say, something like a habanero.
Right.
You got to be careful just handling those. But
yes, don't scratch your nose. Don't get your eye. If you're worried about it, get some kitchen gloves.
Get some gloves. Yes, that's right.
Another trick, I went out to, we're fortunate in Little Rock. We've got so many great resources here for especially a size of city that we are, out at the culinary school, and did a cooking class out there where I was a student for that particular cooking class. And anyhow, so we were learning how to cut up the chicken, and I get kind of grossed out when I handle too much raw meat. I can do it and then I can cook it, but I somehow or another can't eat it. And so the chef said to me, if you just get some cooking gloves, and a couple of the student teachers also reflected that same thing, you'd be surprised at just the difference of not having that contact your hand will do for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So at home, if you're, if you don't really want to touch the raw meats on anything there, fish that we're doing, the cooking gloves are very helpful for that as well. But definitely, if you are chopping up peppers, if you're not having front of mind, you can hurt yourself really bad.
I wanted to show you something here about the tomato. I removed really the pulpy parts. Now, if you're going to eat this tomato or make a sauce out of it, which Romans are great for that, you'd want to leave that, maybe remove the seeds. We just want the fleshy part, because we want we don't want this to turn into mushy and too much liquid. There's going to be liquid in it from the lime juice and the vegetable juices, but we want to take a lot of that out. So we're just going to use, you know, just the fleshy part of the Roma tomato here. And you know, you might like bigger chunks. I like mine to be all pretty consistent, where you get a really uniform
you can
bite.
get a little, yeah, you can get a little bite
a little
of
bit
everything.
of everything instead of like, you know, well, I've got a giant chunk of tomato, but no pepper in that bite. So
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, let me wash my hands, and then I will help you if you would like for me to cut some of these limes up.
absolutely,
And
you want to do that, and
Sure.
we'll get this going here. I mean, we're believe it or not, we're not too far from enjoying some of this. Now, the one thing I will note, you do have to let the lime juice do its magic on the fish. So you kind of have to plan this recipe ahead. It'll cook in a couple of 3 hours. I like to be safe, 4 hours, 6 hours. You can even leave it overnight. With fish, unlike some shellfish, it's not going to overcook and get rubbery.
I was going to ask that. If I made it, you know, overnight and let it sit, but let's say we weren't serving it until noon or so, it would hold.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good to know.
Absolutely. I oftentimes will take the fish and get it covered up with the lime juice and put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then the next morning or at lunch or whatever, do all the fresh vegetables in it.
Perfect.
You don't want to let the fresh vegetables sit too long in that lime juice because they're just going to fall apart.
Oh, yeah.
But the fish, especially this crappie, it's such a light, flaky white fish that it's not gonna be overdone if you let it sit in that lime juice.
Good deal. Okay, so how am I just cutting
So
these?
just cut
to
these
go?
in half,
Okay.
and we're gonna, when you get that going there, we're gonna basically have our two main ingredients are the lime and the fish. So we'll cut those in half, and then we will squeeze those into the fish.
So go ahead and put the fish
yeah,
in
you want to put the
okay.
fish in there,
Sure.
and I'll keep working because I want to add some of this garlic to it. So we're just going to get one clove, a pretty good sized clove of garlic here. This is one of my favorite kitchen tools, especially if you like to make homemade margaritas and not buy the premix. Sweet and sour.
I'm a vodka tonic or vodka soda drinker, and this is also like to make my own salad dressing that's got fresh squeezed lime in it.
Absolutely, yeah, a little lime vinaigrette or something like that. Yeah, that was one of the best like $10 investments I ever made for the kitchen.
Right.
You can see that it's broken. I use it quite a bit. That's a pretty good trick to break.
Yeah, it's
steel.
right. I was about to say it is pretty hardy here.
Excellent.
It's just how you know you've used it well.
And another little kitchen gadget I like, I've got my garlic there, is my garlic press. Everybody needs one of these. Go ahead, we're just gonna
Oh
drop
gosh,
that in
that
there.
smells so good.
Use the back side of the knife. Get it all off there. You don't need much.
Love how these little things just turn this lime right
that-
inside out.
You know, I found when I do use that squeezer, for whatever reason, I tend to clench my teeth. Like, really?
It's not hard, right?
Work.
Now
But
that you've said
I feel
that,
like
I'm
I've
doing
really,
it too,
really
Dave.
I've really got to do that sometimes. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get our avocado ready. I don't know if we're going to use all that. We may just use about half of that. The avocado you got to be careful with. You want a pretty firm one because you don't want to make guacamole in your ceviche.
Yeah, and you have to be careful about avocado will go from hard as a rock, unripe, to guacamole in its skin in no time. So that's something, if I get on a avocado kick, but when I do only buy a couple of them at a time, I just make frequent trips to the store.
All right, I think, yeah, probably we're going to have enough to, you really just want enough lime to cover that. Just want all the fish to be covered so it all cooks.
Now that I've got it kind of stirred up some,
There
I
you
think
go.
we'll have perfect amount. Get that
And, you know, you can't have fish or seafood without a little bit of salt. I never use anything but kosher salt. That's the only salt I want in my kitchen. It just works so much better than your fine iodized salt. Now, sea salt and specialty salts like that are fine too.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
I do like a bigger salt though as well.
Well, I think it coats the food a lot better.
There's so many options though with salt anymore. You're right. Like there's the pink salt and the sea salt and kosher, and then you can just get just ridiculous, which I think most of that's marketing. You know.
Yeah, I saw. You know, they've
How
got
much you grind it?
They've got salt therapy now, where you can go sit in a room that's
salt lamp
that's made out of,
yeah.
salt lamps or walls made out of salt. And I don't know, maybe so.
Aren't those cute? Like you should be able to do something else with those.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I don't know.
So,
okay, so
believe it or not,
we're cooking.
We're cooking. So what we're going to do with that now, we want to put that in the refrigerator.
And we'll cover it.
And actually, we're not going to cover it.
Oh, okay.
I think that I can't really explain why it works better. I'm not sure the science behind it.
Gotcha.
But I like to give it an opportunity to sort of, even if you lose a little bit of it, it's not going to hurt.
It oxidizes somehow, and that helps with that
exactly.
acid.
Just when I first started researching this recipe and finding out how a lot of people make it different ways, because you can find there's as many ceviches as there are people who make it. You
Gotcha.
know?
Okay.
And you go to different Latin American countries, and you know some of them are heavier with certain kinds of seafood than others, or different kind of chilies. Most of the recipes said don't cover it when you put it in the refrigerator.
It's got to have something to do with the air, and it's funny. This is going to be so hard to see. So maybe we can somehow zoom in, but this fish looked really super white when I was cutting it up, and just from the couple of minutes that it's been in the lime juice, you can tell just like the very exterior. It's almost like you just put a piece of chicken in a pan on all four sides, and so now the meat looks pink compared to the cooking process.
It's working its magic.
It's working.
It surprisingly takes very little time for that to start doing it. But again,
it's gotta soak all the way
I like to give it a good 4 to 6 hours or even overnight, just to be completely safe. Now, I like sushi, but I also like my ceviche to be cooked.
I think there's plenty of ways in a recipe that you can make the changes that you want and have some fun with it. But if it says cook it for at least this long, you probably
absolutely.
should.
And I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I remember from last time you're not a huge fan of cilantro. Right. I've still got cilantro today. Sorry,
that's okay.
But you could substitute parsley. If you are not a tomato fan, leave the tomato out. If you want a little spicier version, like in the Yucatan of Mexico, you typically find ceviches made with habanero as opposed to a jalapeno. Leave the avocado out if you're not an avocado fan. So, really, I mean, it's up to you from the type of fish or shellfish you use to the other ingredients. But we're essentially making a fresh seafood, almost salad stew kind
right.
of.
It's like a seafood salsa.
Yeah, it basically is. There's a version over on the west coast of Mexico called aguas calientes that you see made with lobster. And it's lobster and cucumber and some lime juice. Same process. But so, you know, cucumber, that's another option.
That is. It'll have the same. So one of the things that the avocado does, I think, is it counteracts the spice in it, the pepper part.
Yes, absolutely.
A cucumber will do that same thing.
It absolutely will. So, you know, have fun, experiment. Yeah. You know, use one of the many kinds of salt we were talking about.
Yes,
maybe some Himalayan pink salt if you want to kind of fancy it up a little bit, but.
But
again,
let it sit for at least 4 hours in the fridge.
Let it sit.
All right, so we'll put this in here. We'll take a break while we let this cook, and then we'll be right back so that we can finish the...
build our ceviche.
Yeah, all right. We'll see you soon.
Named one of 5 secret foodie cities by Forbes Travel Guide, Little Rock has a thriving artisanal food scene, great restaurants, and a growing number of craft breweries. Request a vacation planning kit at littlerock.com and see why we say dining is better with a Southern accent.
Well, welcome back to this week's episode of Chop the Rock. I'm Diana Long with Trey Reed, and we have been waiting for some crappie to cook in the fridge.
Yeah, that sounds weird to say that,
It
doesn't
does.
it? Yeah, it's again, it's the chemical process that takes place, the acidity of lime juice or any citrus juice, but it cooks the fish. You're going to be blown away. You know, it's been sitting in there for several hours, but what it's going to look like, you've fried the fish and you've taken the breading off. I mean, it's just that beautiful white flaky texture that you're so familiar with crappie, and it was all done by lime juice.
And it doesn't come out tasting strictly like lime juice.
No, I mean, it tastes.
It has that flavor, but it's not overwhelming. It has that
flavor. It's not overwhelming. It still tastes like fish. It's so fresh. I mean, I know that's simple. I mean, it is fresh fish, but I can't think of a better word. That's what, to me, ceviche is just synonymous with fresh. I mean, you've got these fresh vegetables, you've got fresh fish, and just the brightness of that, the citric acid in that lime juice, and it just, it's just so wonderful.
Such a good, refreshing kind of summertime.
And good for you, too.
Yeah.
Or remind you of summer if it's not summertime.
Maybe so. Just turn the heat up a little bit in the house if it's the dead
That's
of winter.
right.
Go for it anyway.
That's right.
I'm down with that. So, okay, so I will pull this out of the fridge.
Yeah, let's do
and
that.
drain it, right?
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Because you're going to see, you might bring it over here and we'll kind of show for the camera that, you know,
it's like a milky.
It was just barely covered, but it's almost like some of the juice in the fish is sort of cooked out of there.
Well, that, and I think the fish, you know, like most meats will shrink down just a little bit when you cook them. And so,
but look at that color. I mean, this looks, it's cooked.
It looks beautiful, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to drain that off.
Okay.
And we're just going to use just the fish, because we don't want to drown it in the lime juice. We want it to, want there to be a little bit of juice there, but believe me, there's plenty of liquid in these vegetables and in the residual lime juice from that fish, where it's not gonna, in no way is it gonna be dry. It's gonna be great. But while you're doing that, I'm gonna kind of fix one of our limes up for a little garnish here. And we're going to serve it. I love this presentation. I can't take credit for it. A friend of mine did this when we were working on our game and fish cookbook. I love to serve it in the margarita glass, but you might have a martini glass or just put it in a bowl. It doesn't matter. It's a really beautiful dish, regardless of how you do it. So I'm going to use my little.
It's perfect in a margarita glass, since it is a Latin inspired
of course
dish, a coastal. You know, you see it a lot at cocktail parties, but this again would be a great light just lunch. I mean, you don't have to wait for a cocktail party to serve, or a potluck type deal to serve something like this.
You know, here's speaking of cocktail parties, it's also rumored to be, now I can't speak from experience, but in Latin American countries they say that ceviche is like the best hangover cure in the world.
Really?
So maybe you want to have it for breakfast after a long night of hitting some of the bars in the River Market District down here.
It would probably accompany with a Bloody Mary really well, too.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to add a little bit of more lime juice just to kind of help us mix that up.
Stuff.
Right, it's for the other stuff. We're just going to use about half of a lime there. And if you'll get one of the, spoon, just kind of mix that up. I'm going to add the avocado last because we don't want it to get smashed up in there.
Right, too much stirring turns it to guacamole.
Oh, isn't that pretty?
That is beautiful. I love all that bright colors. That fish is so white.
Yep.
All right.
All right, now we'll add a little bit of this.
Ooh, I made a mess there.
That's okay. You talked about your fur baby picking up off the floor.
She pick it up off the counter.
I'll take care of anything that gets out of the bowl there.
Well, we cleaned before, so. All right. Well, that looks
there we
wonderful.
go. So we might want to use that bigger spoon to kind of get that. We'll make sure we get a little bit of everything, and we'll add a little bit more there. Oh man, look at that. That's beautiful. Oh gosh, I can't wait to try this. Look at those colors.
My mouth is watering just watching that.
Look at that. We'll put a little lime on it.
Voila.
And there you go.
There you go.
Crappie Ceviche.
Crappie Ceviche. I can't wait to taste it. You know, and we're going to have this here with these corn chips, which is a typical way. But as you were scooping that in there, all I could think to myself was, that would make a great fish taco.
Absolutely.
You know, if you had some really good flour tortillas.
Some nice tortillas, sure.
That'd be delicious in something like that. Or let's say you're trying to low carb it, or, you know, just don't have any of that. This was no problem. If you could take a basic salad,
I was going to say,
romaine, anything like that, kind of chop that up, maybe drizzle, mix yourself like you could do a olive oil and lime kind of dressing for just the lettuce part, so that it's nice and good too.
Just a bed of greens. And put that on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't tried that, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
All right, good deal. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know how strong our chips are or how strong they need to be.
Yeah, we may want to we probably want to just kind of scoop a little bit out there. I'm spilling it. Shame on me.
That's okay. We'll take care of it.
A little bit of everything there.
Let's get a little bit of all of those.
I'll wait for you. I wasn't very chivalrous by just digging in.
No,
but
that's okay.
My gut took over.
You did the fishing, right?
Right.
You deserve first bite. You worked for it.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Oh my.
Oh, it's so good.
That is so fresh.
What a great texture, and the fish flavor of this crappie is so light. It's not overpowered by fish at all.
No, I mean it takes on that lime flavor, but it's not just lime.
It's another reason for the fork, so that when I needed to double dip, I don't feel so bad about
That's right.
adding some more fish to my chip here. I'll just...
Wow. Makes me want to go crappie fishing.
Makes me want to go to Mexico.
That too.
Yeah, anytime. I encourage everybody at home, check out Game and Fish Commission's website. You guys are regularly sharing information about resources. I know that you had a 100-year anniversary a while back to celebrate the Game and Fish.
It's been a little over 3 years ago, believe it or not. It seems like it was just yesterday.
It seems like it was just yesterday to me.
Yeah, 2015 was our 100th anniversary. We produced a cookbook to celebrate that. Unfortunately, we sold out of them. But you know, if you got questions about this recipe, I know you put the recipe.
We will share this.
You're going to share it, but you know, if you want to know anything about some of the other recipes in there, just shoot us an email and we'll track a recipe down for you. But you know, to me, again, completing the circle of the things I love to do, going out and hunting and fishing, and then bringing it back to the kitchen and being able to enjoy it and share it with friends is there's really nothing better than that. So it's just if you want to experience that, come check out our website, agfc.com, visit one of our nature centers, and you know, come join the party and see what it's all about. You know, there's fishing is just it's one of the great joys and passions of my life, and being able to enjoy another passion, cooking it, is really special.
And adding to that passion of eating really good food.
Absolutely.
Oh, you just can't beat it. So it is. And just as a reminder, we're here in the River Market at 400 President Clinton Avenue. The Whit Stevens Nature Center is literally in our backyard. And incidentally speaking, so's the Arkansas River.
That's right.
and just right in Riverfront Park, along the river, happens to be a little dock that's attached on this side that you can fish from. So come down here, make a day of your trip, go visit the Game and Fish Nature Center out here. You know, rent a pole, go pick up a pole, tie up a cane pole. It doesn't matter. We would just love to see you down here enjoying all that Arkansas has to offer, including some good food.
You mentioned a cane pole. It's really easy. Get some crickets or some earthworms, a cork, a hook, cane pole. You can catch some brim right down here in the river, take them home, and you can make the ceviche out of brim, and it is delicious.
That's right. Thank you so much. I look forward to other segments with you and seeing what else we can come up with and concoct in the kitchen.
I hope you'll have me back. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank y'all for joining us again on this week's segment of Chop the Rock. We hope that you will continue following us on Facebook, YouTube, and watching segments as we air and re-air them on our local access channel.